Hello everybody, Seth, Academic Advantage. Get probably more questions about the uh, reading slash verbal section than just about anything else. The reading tends to be, it seems simple at first with the SAT because we generally have shorter text than say the ACT, but within that text, you really have to know your stuff. I want to show you how you can drive up your score. A few quick changes, you can drive your score, you can turn around these reading questions. Don't let them bog you down, all right, and you'll see it'll make a world of difference in terms of you feeling more confident, in terms of you being able to handle these questions, and most importantly, you'll see the difference in the results. So what we want to look for reading, we're going to get into what I call some flow charting, and then the technique of how to handle those reading questions. And I'm even going to mix in, we're going to work over a vocabulary question as well, because I find that they often tie in together. And just one thing that's helpful in general is if you just do more reading, something you like. I tell my students 10 to 15 minutes a day, pleasure reading, something you enjoy. So it could be something simple, Sports Illustrated, Rolling Stone if you like music, newspaper. I mean, if you're reading the lifestyle section about the Kardashians, it's still well written if you're reading that in, say, a newspaper. And most importantly, just stick with it. Your vocab's going to get better. It's going to help out with reading comprehension, and should help with grammar and and writing and so forth. So, really, really good thing to do. Now, with that said, let's get into some reading questions. So here we are, typical reading question. What's interesting about the SAT is that although it seems like a short, simple question, there's a lot in there. We really need to kind of carve into it. You want to read it basically with like a fine-tooth comb, because within there, each word is really important with the SAT. Let's take a look. We're looking at the actual reading over here. And what I like to do is kind of flow chart, especially on the bigger questions, what it is telling us. So that way you kind of have a spark notes, if you will, about what the question is asking us. And that way we don't have to go back and reread, and we know exactly what we're looking for. In this case, it tells us about Souls of Black Folks. It's by author Du Bois. And it tells us that it suggests that upon hearing black folk songs, he felt, here it is right here, an intuitive and sometimes unexpected sense of cultural recognition. Okay, so now I'm asked a question, there's a blank. So I'm asked the question, what should go next? So what I want to do is put it in my own words as simple as possible, what should come next. I'm looking for a statement, right, because it's asked us over here in the question, which one is going to illustrate or picture the claim. So I need to have some statement that's going to show that he's feeling this music. He hears some black music, and he has this natural inclination towards it. That's what I need to see. If it says anything but that, it's gone. It's just flat out gone. So let's take a look. We go with our first one over here, choice A, right? Black folk music still remains as the singular spiritual heritage of the nation and the greatest gift of the Negro people. Okay, now this one seems tempting. The problem we have here is it's not showing that the author himself is having this kind of natural inclination, this proclivity, if you will, towards the book. We need to show he is actually feeling it. So this one's going to get a slash right there. All right, so on your actual SAT, just take it, and it has a nice function where it just slashes out. B. Ever since I was a child, these songs have stirred me strangely. They came out of the South unknown to me, one by one, and yet at once I knew them as of me and of mine. All right, that sounds pretty good, right? Because that's showing this kind of like natural, inherent feeling, this intuition he has about these songs. And so, all right, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the one, but let's just go through the motions over here. Checking the others. Caricature has sought again to spoil the quaint beauty of the music. Right, just not showing that he's having a natural connection with the music. Out. And D, the songs are D, the siftings of centuries, the music is far more ancient than the words. Again, he's not feeling it. He's not showing that natural inclination. So, yeah, it's B just as we thought. So this is a good example of a typical reading question. If we just work off of what we see on the screen, I know it's really tough. I've done it myself. But if we come over here, and as I like to call it, to kind of flowchart the question, it becomes much, much better. Every time with the ACT, when we have a longer reading question, you're going to see what they give you as a claim. Claims typically final sentence or second to last sentence. All right, and oftentimes they'll just come out and say, here's the claim. So we want to know what the claim is. That's step one. Step two, we're actually going to see if we have a chart as we have over here. You want to see evidence of the claim in the chart. Important thing to note, you could have a correct answer choice. It could be totally correct, but if it does not match with the claim, it is wrong. And so many times they bait students into taking those questions. Final thing is, also if you have an underline, a blank, as we have over here, we want to put in our own word or phrase as simple as possible for what should go in the blank. So at this point, they kind of threw the whole kitchen sink at us. We have the claim, we have the chart, we have the underline. All right, so we're going to take it head on and solve this. All right, so what it tells us is that geographer E and colleagues surveyed small-scale farmers in 3 locations in Nigeria, which has mountainous terrains in the north. All right, so coming with the north, what it tells us is that's kind of a mountainous area. Again, abbreviate wherever possible. All right, now it tells us then that we have these crops that are planted, and then most importantly, final sentence. Some regions, female farmers were found to be especially prominent in the cultivation of specific types of crops, and even constitute the majority of farmers who cultivate these crops. For instance, okay. So now we're going to go into our chart over here. Looking back up. So where do we have females that represent over 50%? Right, because that would be a majority of the people who are growing the crops. And we have it in 2 cases. All right, so I have it in the north and then I have it in the south. All right, so that's the claim. Claim is that in some cases, females represent the majority of the crop growers, of the farmers for these crops. All right, and we have 2 examples of that. So it's going to happen in the north and south Ondo. All right, just with non-root vegetables. So that's what I'm going to fill in for the blank. That's what I'm looking for. So if there's really anything but that in the answer choice, it's gone. We want north and south Ondo, where it's just the non-root vegetables, females, and majority. Let's quickly go through the choices. Start with A. Most of the farmers who mainly cultivated cereals and most of the farmers who mainly cultivated non-root vegetables south were women. That is not true. All right, because we have the north and then we have the south. All right, so this is just addressing one of them. Okay, so that's out. And cereals, as we can tell, that's not going to be majority women. Most women, or more women in B and Central Ondo mainly cultivated root crops than mainly cultivated cereals. All right, so we can see again, first of all, that doesn't match up with my claim. The claim is that females represent the majority in some areas with growing crops. So it doesn't even match with the claim. On that basis alone, I'm just going to knock it out over here. That's just gone. Okay. Most of the farmers who mainly cultivated non-root vegetables in North and South Ondo were women. There we go. Right? This is exactly what we said. This is what I'm looking for. All right. So again, the way to handle it, we have a claim. We want to state what the claim is. We want to find an example of the claim in the chart, which we did. And then we want to state in our own words, as simple as possible, what should go in there. All right, so we did all these things. We fired on all cylinders. And thankfully, right, it just matched up where we have an exact match with what we stated. That's the way we want to handle it. So this is another example of kind of a more complex reading question. And we're going to go through it. We'll, again, name the claim. We have an underline, so we want to figure out what would I put in. What would we put in as kind of the underline over there? And then all we have to do is match up which one will match up with that. So it's sort of like, you know, kind of like a field goal kicker. You already have your goal already in mind, and you're just going to just go through the motions. This particular one says herbivorous sauropod dinosaurs can grow more than 100 feet long and weigh up to 80 tons. And some researchers attribute the evolution of the sauropods to such massive sizes to increase plant production resulting from high levels All right, so we'll do that right there. High levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide during the Mesozoic era. Okay. However, whenever you see a transition word in a reading question, it's going to be important, right? Especially something like however, although telling us signifying a difference, contrast. There is no evidence, really important there, of significant spikes in CO2 levels coinciding with relevant periods and the dinosaur evolution, such as when the first large sauropods appeared, when several sauropod lineages underwent further evolution toward gigantism, when sauropods reached their maximum known size. Okay, so what it's telling us at first, okay, so we'll just abbreviate wherever possible. So dinosaurs, all right, they were thought, right, they became giants, right? So flowchart it, giants, okay, seemingly because of high CO2, right? So high level CO2, but when we look further, right, we have the however. Okay, biggest dinosaurs occurred when there was no high CO2. Okay, so now we have the claim. The claim is that when the giant dinosaurs, when they came about, there was not high level CO2 as thought. So now I just need to figure out, well, what's going to go in that underline then? So suggesting that the gigantic dinosaurs did not come about, did not grow because of high level CO2. I want something to that effect. If it says anything but that, it is wrong. Okay, so let's go through our choices. So it tells us over here we have fluctuations in the atmospheric CO2 affected different sauropod lineages differently. Not matching my theme, that the giant dinosaurs did not come about when there was high CO2. The evolution of larger body size in sauropods did not depend on increased atmospheric carbon dioxide. This pretty much matches up with what was said. All right, look at my bottom statement. The big dinosaurs did not happen when there was high CO2. Just going through the motions to C and D. Atmospheric CO2 was higher when the largest known sauropods lived than it was when the first sauropods appeared. Not stated, and also doesn't match with the claim, so that's out. And finally, D. Sauropods probably would not evolve to such immense sizes if atmospheric CO2 had been even slightly higher. Again, not matching with your claim. If these statements do not match your claim, they're automatically wrong. So B is my answer over here. So we want to work in a vocab question as well. Kind of flows in with the reading and look at how to handle between the vocab and the reading comprehension. We're looking at probably 2/3 of the verbal. All right, so a good, massive amount. So we get these right, and we're pretty much guaranteed a nice verbal score. Let's go through this one. One of the techniques we have for vocab is we want to plug in our own word or phrase as simple as we can make it. There are always going to be some words that you may not understand as far as answer choices. Don't let that bog you down. Make sure to eliminate what you can, what you definitely know. All right, and then we'll kind of we'll tackle those questions mainly through power of elimination. Those choices are left over. We'll take this one on. Some economic historians blank that late 19th, early 20th century households in the U.S. experienced an economy of scale when it came to food purchases. They assumed that large households, okay, so here's what they figured. So large households spent less on food per person than did small households. Okay, so we would naturally think this, like if somebody goes to a store like Costco, buys a bulk, they save money. Now, here's our key. Economist L showed, however, all right, so that's going to be really crucial. Let's mark that, however, it's a contrast word, that a close look at the available data disproves this supposition. That's what I need. So, many times with vocab, I tell my students, they're literally giving you the answer. You just have to put it in. And in that case, that's what it is. Now, we may not know what supposition is. We may not know it. But an interesting thing happens with English. When you see a word within a word, English, it usually means that. Supposition. Suppose. We see it right in there. So that's what somebody would suppose. They would suppose or believe this. That's all I need to look for. I just need to find out something that basically means you would suppose this, you would guess this. it would be something that would be hypothesized. All right. So something that we would guess. What can I definitely knock out? Let's come over to my answer choices. Contrive, right? Contrive is when I try and make something work, and often it can be used in a bad way where you're trying to manipulate something. We're not questioning, and I'm not regretting. I don't feel bad about anything. All right. So by default, it's going to be surmise, and that's what surmise basically means, to suppose. Surmise means that you kind of conclude it. You took a guess about it, and that's how we'll do it. Um, so this was a tougher vocabulary like the other sections with the mini sections, vocab, reading, grammar, and the bullet questions. They go easy to evil. This was the end of a vocabulary, so of course tougher question. But just goes to show you follow the same techniques, and you can definitely get questions like this. Try up your reading score. I hope you enjoyed this video. We've been working over 20 years handling tests, SAT, ACT, along with tutoring different subjects, college apps, and so forth. So we've pretty much seen it all. If you find these videos helpful, you can always contact us at the link below. But we're going to put out more material, and I hope that everybody can benefit and see that you really can make a difference. And a little bit goes a long way. Remember, SAT, it's generally about 10 points a question. And one thing we always want to do is we want to get to that harder level on the SAT, on that second module, since it's an adaptive test. So we take things to kind of the next level. We excel in the first part, module 1, with verbal math. Now suddenly get to harder level 2. You're going to see that your scores up. Your scores are going to drive up. And you will notice a big difference in terms of, yes, this is much harder. That's fine, because you know that chances are your point total is going up because you did get to that harder, more difficult section. Unfortunately, if we don't get to the harder section too, we're usually limited about 570 on a section, and so that can really limit our scores. So that's the name of the game. Do well, excel in that first module, and then you can really up your scores. Again, if you found this a benefit, please let us know if we can help.